Türkiye'nin daha iyi bir geleceğe kavuşmasında iyi yetişmiş, iyi eğitilmiş gençlerin önemine yürekten inandı.
He believed totally to the future of the young people and the young industry, and the biggest investment he did was in young people. And he taught us to be respectful to international cooperation and vision. And this is how we commemorate Sakip Sabanci in his 41st, in the 14th year of his death. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to Sakip Sabanci International Research Awards and to this commemoration ceremony. Thank you very much for being here. Distinguished guests, today we are celebrating his 14th year of testimony, and his testimony was to establish an international research award process in his testimony, and this is what we are celebrating today. The late Sakip Sabanci was not only an important and successful businessman in Turkey, but he was he also a visionary, a compassionate and warm personality, and he supported all the time the young people, the arts and the artists, and he was always a visionary. And the first step of this commemoration, I think, should be music. And now I would like to invite Pınar Sivritepe and Şafak Erişkin to the rostrum to perform their music.
Çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Alkışlarla sanatçılarımızı uğurluyoruz. Kısa bir süre sonra tekrar sahneye istirham edeceğim kendilerini.
To call them again in a very short time, distinguished guests. Now I would like to invite Mrs. Güler Sabanci, the President of the Board of Trustees of Sabanci University. You have the floor, madam.
Çok fazla ama. Evet, değerli.
Yes, dear guests, distinguished and very valuable and dear family of Sakip Sabanci and our cherished friends. Mr. Türkan Sabanci, his corporates, and also the professors, the teachers, dear students, distinguished members of the press. This is the 14th year of the date when he left us, and this is a ceremony that we are commemorating him and welcome at the Sabanci Center. Since 13 years, Sakip Bey underlined also in his testament, and he wrote that personally, something, and he said that the Sakip Sabanci International Research Awards, the third award ceremony, will be distributed today. Sakip Sabanci was not only for the sciences but also social sciences that they needed to be supported, and this is how he started this award. He was a visionary and he wanted this understanding durable, and also it was the first and the single and internationally dimensioned academic award that he launched. And with this same understanding, we have supported the young academicians on this topic and also the jury members. And we gave a special importance that all these individuals had an international dimension, together with Istanbul Policy Center and also the team from the team of the scientific social sciences department of our universities is working on this time under the leadership of Mr. Fuat Keman. Democratic governments and living together and the threats against this issue was the theme that was determined for this year. Turkey, at geopolitical and cultural level, has always worked as a bridge between the East and the West. And since the Ottoman Empire, we had a regional power and in the global sense, a key country. With the different specialities and qualifications, our country was efficient, strong, and stable in finding a solution to regional and global problems. And for that, the necessity of the production of information, research, and thinking on the scientific manner. This, in order to achieve this game, Turkey has to work together with the world together. And our university and also Sakip Sabanci International Research Award was based on this philosophy, and the relationship between democratic governments and economic development was the major topic for the jury special award today. Moreover, we will also present each article awards to 3 young academicians, and I am congratulating them with all my heart. And this universal platform also reflects the vision of Sakip Bey very clearly. Sakip Bey was thinking always on Turkey, but it was not limited on Turkey at all. Everything had to be an international dimension. That was very important for him, and he demanded this to be implemented by ourselves. And this is how we established Sabanci University. This was our understanding, and our target was to establish institution with international respectability and also an academic structure that was accepted by the whole world. This is what we achieved also. In 2019, we will be celebrating the 20th year of our university. It is a young institution, however, it is well known in the international arena, and that gives us courage. I would like to share with you now a new initiative of our university right now, and we believe that this initiative will be very appropriate to the name and vision of Sakip Sabanci. We are going to open the Sakip Sabanci Turkey Research Center on the 4th of May in New York. This is an achievement in the social sciences. Dr. Dilek Sabanci and Sevil Sabanci, I would like to thank them as the inheritors of the understanding of Sakip Sabanci. At the center that will be established at Columbia University with the initiatives of Professor Ayşe Kadıoğlu and all our contribution coming from the Arts and Social Sciences faculty, and also I hope that this center will become a point of reference for Turkish studies. Distinguished guests, I would like to also share with you the topic of next year's subject. The subject of 2019 will be as follows: the dimensioned in a global chaotic situation and considering safety, economy, and democracy. We have to think about that once again. Safety, security, economy, and democracy have to be thought together, and this has to be also brought to the academic platform, and we are going to support our young students to work on this topic. Sakip Sabanci International Research Award, as has been in the past, will be also encouraging the researchers also in the future. And this is my hope and expectation. And I would like to congratulate the young academicians who will be part of these researches from now onwards, and I congratulate them. And I would like to thank all jury members who have worked very hardly in the international arena and also evaluation. And I would like to thank Mrs. Sevil Sabanci, member of our the trustee board for her initiatives, and I would like to thank Dilek Sabanci, Türkan Sabanci as well, and also I would like to thank Zehra Sayers, our rector, who has been our rector from the very beginning. And I would like to also thank a member of the social sciences faculty and our faculty, Özge Mahluoğlu, and also I would like to thank Mr. Fuat Keyman from the Social Sciences Faculty and Arts Faculty of Sabancı University for their leadership. And also I would like to thank all my colleagues at the university, Berna Özkul and Yekta Kara being in the leading position. And also I would like to thank you for not leaving us alone on this very important commemoration meeting, and I would like to thank the members of Sakip Sabanci University and all our friends. Thank you once again. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sabanci. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now we should start our reward ceremony. But obviously, let me comment on the international research awards of Sakip Sabanci. Let's remember what has happened in recent years on this field.
Değerli konuklar, 13 yıldır
Distinguished
düzenlenen
guests,
Sakip Sabancı Uluslararası
for the
Araştırma
last
Günü'nün
13
bu
years,
konusu
the
Türkiye'de
Sakip
tekrar
Sabanci
edildi.
International
Türkiye'de ve dünyada
Award
demokratik
ceremony.
iletişim ve birlikte
It
yaşamaya
was,
yönelik tehditler
and today the topic
Jüri
was
özel ödülü
the
ve
threats
eşit
against
ağırlıklı makale ödülleri
independent and
olmak üzere iki
the
ayrı
challenges
bölümde
to
takdim
democratic
edilecek olan
governance and living
Uluslararası
together
Araştırma
in
Ödüllü'nün
Turkey and in the
her yıl
world.
dünyaca
And
tanınmış
now
saygın
we will
akademisyenlerden
have
oluşan
important academicians,
bağımsız ve uluslararası bir
a
jüri
jury.
grubu
It is an
çalışmaları yürütmekte.
independent and
Ödüllere
international
geçmeden önce
jury
bu
who
yılki
is
çalışmaları yürüten
examining,
çok
which is
kıymetli
examining
jüri üyelerimizi
the
sizlere takdim etmek istiyorum
the works.
izninizle.
And the jury members, I would like to
Jürimiz
mention them
başkandan
once again.
itibaren
The
Kemalıoğlu,
president
jüri
of the
başkanı,
jury
Sabancı
is
Üniversitesi.
Özge Kemahlıoğlu from
Tabii
Sabanci
bir alkışla
University.
tek tek
A
jürilerimizi.
big applause for the jury
Olanlar,
members.
olmayanlar
Those who are
alkışla şöyle
here
bir
and who are
emeklerinin
not
karşılığı
here.
hiç değilse. Dimitar Beşev, North
Dimitar
Carolina
Beşev from North
University.
Carolina University is also with us.
John D.
Hubbard, Columbia University. Ayşe Kadıoğlu, Sabancı University. Fuat Keyman, Sabancı University, professor and also director of Istanbul Policy Center, and Ellen Last, Gothenburg University, and Milan Svolik, Yale University. A big applause to our jury and the jury members because they have worked really very hard and the result was a very fine one. Let's start with the article awards. Many young researchers applied for this, and the main topics were originality and the clarity of the presentation of the research results, and these were the main specificities for the work they have achieved. The participants in 13 years from all parts of the world, more than 370 scientists applied for this award from the whole world. And this
değerli bir bilim insanına takdim ediliyor.
Will be the award this year will be given to a very important person, and I would like to give the decision of the jury, and in order to have that information, I would like to invite the president of the jury, Mrs. Özge Kemahlıoğlu, to the rostrum.
Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you very much. I would like to now share with you the winners of the Research Awards. However, first of all, I would like to thank all the members of the jury for their hard work. I would like to thank them for their time, actually, during the evaluation process. Now, our topic was challenges to democratic governance and living together in Turkey and the world. The jurists read all articles, all papers anonymously, and we have evaluated all papers according to certain criteria. Now, first of all, I would like to share with you the topics of the papers without mentioning the names of authors. The appeal of populism and the impact of elite discourse is the title of the first paper. This paper concentrates on populism, which has been more attractive over the last years. And this populism is in contrast with some of the main principles of liberal democracy. This paper looks at populism in Turkey. Those who support populism in Turkey apparently claim that they're happy with democracy in Turkey and they are closer to the party of power. And this paper also discusses the impact of political elitists on public. The second paper is Democracy Dismantled.
Demokratik çöküşün modelleri yıllar içerisinde farklılaşabilmektedir.
There are different models of democratic collapse. Coups were such models. In recent years, however, we see that through means of law, democratic competition and democracy is dismantled. The paper discusses the impact of polarization and reducing political competence through legal means also is another topic of discussion of paper. Elective affinities of democratic backsliding is the title of the third paper. It's a comparative perspective on Hungary and Turkey. This paper looks at Hungary and Turkey, which are structurally different, but politically, recently, they have been quite similar. It dwells on two examples, looking at political dismantling and populism. We see a collapsed opposition and the role of media in both countries, according to this paper. Now I would like to share with you the names of the authors of these papers. The first is Selim Erdem Aytaç from Koç University. The author of the second paper is İpek Çınar, who is a student in University of Chicago currently. The author of the third paper is Berk Esen from Bilkent University. Distinguished guests, I would like to now invite Selim Erdem Aytaç, İpek Çınar, and Berk Esen to the floor, please. Young academics with their papers. And they are the award winners of this year. Now I would like to ask the awards to be distributed.
Berk Esen, İpek Çınar, Selim Erdem Aytaç.
Miss Sevil Sabanci and Miss Sera Sayer.
Bu arada bu anı ölümsüzleştirebiliyoruz değil mi fotoğraf?
Well, photos are allowed, right? Photos are allowed. We need to immortalize this moment.
Şöyle toplu halde siz de Sayın Başkan'la
Yes, get together please for a photo.
Çok teşekkür ediyoruz.
Thank you very much. We would like to thank you.
Siz de Sayın Başkan.
We would like to thank you for, and we congratulate you on your success. Now I would like to give the microphone to the award winners, one by one, to share their remarks.
Herkese iyi akşamlar.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the members of the jury and the Sabanci University for this award. This award is really meaningful for me. I'm one of the first graduate students of Sabanci University, and I feel extra proud, additionally proud today that I was worthy of this award. I discussed the concept of populism and the impact of populism on voters in Turkey. And I also discussed very briefly how populism is a threat against living together in Turkey and the world. Populism is more of a strategy than anything else. Populist strategies are used by politicians which portray themselves as the real representatives of the public. And In liberal democracies, there are many mechanisms, and populist leaders put elections on a pedestal, and populist actors can be a threat to democratic governance and living together. Populist politicians would polarize people as us and them, and they would be the good guys, and the opposition, those in opposition will be their enemies. Those who do not support them would thus be excluded from society, and therefore their means of democracy is only used to polarize the people. Populist politicians see themselves as the only representative of the will of the public, and therefore they use democratic backsliding, and therefore even the elections would not be carried out in a fair fashion. In my paper, I looked into populist ideas in Turkey. I talked to more than 100 people in 49 cities, and I have seen that populist ideas were very common. Populism in Turkey supports political leaders not to be responsible, be immune to what they do and what they say. And in Turkey, people who have populist ideas support these leaders, believing that they are representatives of the will of the public. Now, the populism will weaken democracy in the medium and long run. In every field that we can see, predictability will suffer, economy will suffer, and struggle against populism will therefore be an important struggle. I would like to thank once again the Sabanci University for giving me this award, and I would like to thank my family for always supporting me.
Herkese iyi akşamlar dilerim.
Good evening, everyone.
Öncelikle bu yolun çok başında olmama rağmen bu ödüle layık görülmek benim için çok büyük bir onur.
I feel very honored to have been worthy of this award. I would like to extend my thanks to the members of the jury for considering me as worthy of this award. I would also extend my thanks to the distinguished faculty of University of Chicago for supporting me in my academic work. I live in the United States right now, which is considered to be the most developed democracy in the world. But even in America, there's a lot of controversy. In developing countries like Turkey and Hungary, we see that there are now certain threats. My professor from Poland has gone through some unfavorable times, and she inspired me for writing this paper. The democratic backsliding changed form. The concept of democratic collapse became a repetitive phenomenon of the 21st century, and the elected autocrats also started portraying variations. There used to be controlled coups at the end of the 20th century. However, now we have different models of democratic backsliding and collapse. Legal ways are used. Law, ironically, is used to weaken liberal constitutional mechanisms. And in Turkey, we suffer from a similar process. The mechanisms behind democratic backsliding should be investigated further and deciphered in all its details. We can only do this in a liberal environment where there is freedom of thought. I would like to extend my thanks to Sabanci University because Sabanci University is one such environment where free thinking is possible. I would like to thank the university. I also would like to thank my family who have stood behind me throughout all my academic life. I am grateful to them. Words would not be enough for me to express my gratitude to my family. I would like to also thank you, distinguished participants, my family, and all of you for being here for this award ceremony. Distinguished guests, I would like to extend my thanks to the jury for considering me as worthy of this really prestigious award. I would like to thank the Sabanci family. I'm a young scholar, a young academic, and I'm very honored that my paper, before it's published, has received this award. This award also means that I'm coming back home. 10 years ago, I majored in political science in Sabanci University. The theories, the questions that I would be using from then on, I met them during my years as a student at Sabanci University. And I met many of my colleagues that I'm still friends with today, back when I was a student there. I wasn't looking at Turkey as an exceptional case study. I was trying to actually compare Turkey to other countries. As a comparative political scientist, I was looking at political problems of Turkey, socio-economic problems of Turkey, and I was comparing Turkey with other countries which I thought to be equivalent to Turkey in these terms. And also, we know that there are multi-crises of globalism, which triggers a wave of populism in different geographies. Illiberal governments come as a result of this wave, and I wanted to understand the methods and discourse of these governments better. In my paper, I was looking at Hungary and Turkey. Particularly, I was looking at the right-wing populist parties in these two countries. At the first glance, these two countries seem to be completely different. However, the right-wing parties in power act very similarly, from NGOs to university, from the national perception of national history to other things. They act similarly. And with the weakness of opposition, in both countries, we see an authoritarian movement. In both countries, we see that there are questions for, there are questions as to how democracy will come back again. I looked into this question as well. I would like to thank my mom. She is one of the first teachers of this republic, and she has educated 3 generations of students, and she has been a great influence on me, and I would like to thank her, and I dedicate my award to her. Thank you, and congratulations. We wish you all the success. I'm going to keep this with me because on this card I have the name of these young people. I will follow what they do from now on. I'm very, very impressed. I'm very impressed. We thank you for your remarks. Now we will continue with music again. One more time then, I would like to invite Pınar Sivritepe and Şafak Erişkin for a musical performance.
Teşekkür ediyoruz. Kocaman alkışlar efendim.
Thank you very much. A great
Harikaydınız. Çok teşekkürler.
artists.
Alkışlarla
You were
uğurluyoruz.
wonderful. Thank you very much.
Değerli konuklar, saygıdeğer hanımefendiler, beyefendiler, şimdi o ana geldik. Şimdi jüriyi özel
to the last stage. Namely, I would like to invite Mrs. Özge Kemahlıoğlu in order to announce the award winner.
Teşekkürler. 2018 Sakip Sabanci Uluslararası Araştırma Jüri Özel Ödülünü
I am very happy to share with you that a scientist, a scholar who has worked on democracy for more than 50 years and has inspired many political scientists in Turkey and in the world, has been awarded the Special Jury Award of the Sabanci International Research Awards. This scientist was born in Poland in 1940 and has continued his career in the United States. He has worked for many universities and research centers in the world. He has educated many scientists that are working in prestigious universities all over the world, and he has shaped comparative political science in the world. He has been a consultant to many organizations like the Latin American Council of Social Sciences, UNDP, and American Organization of American States. He is also been a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences since 1991. At the end of 1980s and the beginning of 1990s, when many countries were going through a dual transformation, this scientist asked 4 questions. Which are the democratic institutions that could endure? What kind of economic systems could create economic growth? What are the political conditions that would create a successful economic system? And how can we strengthen democracy under what economic conditions? These questions are even more important today after 30 years. Now, the jury, the award winner, our award winner, has contributed to the definition of democracy as a political regime. And in his definition, democracy is focusing on elections and uncertainty. Democracy is a political system where all election results are a probability only, as long as citizens do not know each other's preferences. So democracy is actually an institutionalized uncertainty. So what does it mean? What do we mean when we say strengthening the democracy? How do we prevent the collapse of democracy? How will democratic institutions endure? Our award winner in his research has said that parties who have the hope to win in the future will be willing to stay in the long term in a system of democracy. And he has also said that after a certain level of economic development, the level of democracy will be strengthened and democracy in these countries will not collapse. Uncertainty is an aspect of democracies, and policies of politicians cannot be foreseen beforehand. So democratic institutions, whether they have a role on economic performance or not, is another question that our award winner has investigated. The average economic growth of political regimes where there is democracy, there are better wages and there is better productivity. The award winner of this year has also worked on many social democracies, and he says that workers and low-income level groups, as long as they they move along with other social groups in society and they restrict their preferences to economic profits and investments, then certain economic results could be shaped. And this model, however, is an old model is now leaving its place to other models, and in many countries we see populism, nationalism becoming more and more popular. And this award, the award winner of this year, has many papers on democracy, and among his books I could cite Democracy and the Market, Capitalism and Social Democracy, Democracy and Development, Democracy and the Limits of Self-Governance. And in all these books, our award winner says that those politicians who think that in the long run they can do away with democracy are now more and more in number as well. So how can we explain these changes? Our award winner will now take the floor to share with us certain hints into why we think elections are still important, why we are still having elections. This year's Special Jury Award winner is a very important scientist and a scholar, Mr. Adam Jaworski. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, stage is yours. Kocaman alkışlarla.
With a big round of applause, Adam Jaworski, the chairwoman of the Board of Trustees of Sabanci University and the president of the Sabanci University, Madam Sayers, they're both invited to present the award to Adam Jaworski. Special Jury Award goes to Adam Jaworski. Special Jury Award 2018. I thank you very much, Ms. Sabanci and Ms. Sayers. Now we would like to give the floor to Adam Jaworski.
Sorry, I put on a timer because being between beautiful music and food is dangerous, so I don't want to keep you here for too long. I am obviously deeply honored by the award, but I have to admit I'm also profoundly surprised. I'm surprised that the award committee and the jury would reach beyond Turkey, beyond people who study Turkey, to somebody like myself, who was born in Poland, worked most of the time in the United States, and who studies problems that we share across borders, problems that require our joint effort, international effort, global effort, to be coped with and perhaps to be resolved. I accept this award not only as a recognition for 50 years, yes, already, of work, but as a stimulus still for myself, but in particular for younger cohorts of scholars and students, like the three distinguished young people who were recipients of your rewards today, to continue the work, continue research, continue the efforts on the challenges that we face today. And in the remaining part of my time, I would like to share with you what I think these challenges are. As you see from the title, I still think that we have more questions than answers, and you will find that I think that we urgently need answers to meet the challenges we face. Most of my life, I've studied two questions. One is, how can people who are divided by values, norms, and interests live together in liberty and peace? And the second one is, how can democracy, political equality, consist with economic and social inequality? The point of departure in any study of politics is that in every society, at every time, there are always conflicts. There are conflicts over income, religion, ethnicity, region, but sometimes even very minor conflicts make people passionate. In France, for example, there's a passionate discussion whether members of the national football team have to be compelled to sing the Marseillaise. Yes, some of them don't want it because it's a militaristic song. Yes, it says "Aux armes, les citoyens," and there's very intense debate about it. There are conflicts in every society. We cannot avoid it. We only have to ask how they can be treated again in liberty and peace. And I think that the main mechanism by which conflicts are or can be peacefully regulated are elections. Elections, and specifically alternation between parties in office, has two effects. One, it makes losers realize that their loss is temporary. And two, it makes winners concerned about winning the next election, and that is to try to do what people will find most desirable. Just if I may think for a second, in the United States in the year 2000, Bush perhaps won the election, became the president, and people like I were depressed and chagrined. But we thought there'll be 2004. In 2004, he really won the election, and we thought, but there'll be 2008. And then what happened in 2008? A country which elected and re-elected Bush and Cheney, elected Obama, and then the right was depressed. And they hoped, maybe it's 2012. No, they lost in 2012. And then there came 2016 and Trump won. I think that's the magic of the mechanism, yes, that it allows conflicts to be processed over time, that it induces patience on the part of losers and responsibility or accountability on the part of winners. This mechanism doesn't always work. It does not work when the stakes in the election, when the cost of losing, when the difference between losing and winning is too high. And it doesn't work if the loser has no reasonable chance to come back to office in some future. And this is why I'm concerned about the current situation, because what we see are increased conflicts. I'm just going to show you a picture from the United States of polarization between supporters of Democrats and Republicans in the United States. If you look, you'll see that in 1994 there was almost no difference. In 2004 some difference appeared, and by 2017 they're far apart. Moreover, these partisan differences have deep roots in the society. Just to give you one example, in 1960, 5% of Republicans and 4% of Democrats said that they would be unhappy if their child, their offspring, married a supporter of an opposite party. Made no difference. Now, it's 49% of Republicans, 33% of Democrats. As you see, this polarization, the conflicts, entered into the very basic unit of social structure, the family. So we have an open question, yes? We have a question whether democratic institutions will survive if polarization is very high, if partisan opponents are viewed and labeled as enemies or traitors, yes, if the game becomes all or nothing. And the particular danger on which all the three papers, to which all the three papers were dedicated, that's really striking, is what's now popularly called democratic backsliding. Democratic backsliding is basically gradual monopolization of power by the elected government, sort of almost invisible, step by step, using legal and constitutional measures until it's too late. That, I think, is the specter that haunts us today. The second question that I worked on most of my life is on the coexistence between political equality and economic inequality, or if you wish, between democracy and capitalism. You may or may not know, but almost everybody from the middle of the 17th century thought that private property and democracy are incompatible, that universal suffrage and private property are incompatible, that capitalism and democracy are incompatible. Henry Macaulay, the most foremost English historian, thought so. Karl Marx thought so. It was a belief shared across the political spectrum. And yet, it turns out that that wasn't true, that there's a number of countries in which democracy and inequality, both unequal distribution of capital assets and unequal distribution of incomes by markets, have coexisted. I thought that the mechanism by which they coexist and work smoothly is something which, in a book published in 1986, I called Democratic Class Compromise. This book, by the way, exists in Turkish, was translated into Turkish, which had three parts. Unions and parties learned that it's not in their best interest to push distributional demands too much, that they have to exercise restraint. Firms learned that when unions and left-wing parties are moderate, they can make profits. And governments learn how to administer the system by regulating markets, welfare policies, income insurance policies, and incentives for firms to invest and develop. My fear is, again, that this compromise has been broken. What you see there is a line time paths of productivity per worker and of wages, hourly compensation for worker. And as you see, until the late 1970s, wages grew at the same rate exactly, almost exactly as productivity. Productivity increased, wages increased, which means that the distribution of income between capital and labor remained constant. Look what happens in 1970. In the late 1970s, the jaw just opens up. Yes, wages stagnate. And the same is true, by the way, in 8 Western European countries. The consequences. Well, some of them are probably known to you. In the past 30 years, 40 years, there's been a spectacular increase of inequality. Not everywhere, particularly in the United States, but in most countries. And what worries me even more is that I think for the first time in 200 years, many parents now believe that their children will be materially worse off than they are. It's 60% of Americans and 64% of Europeans now say in surveys that they think that their children will be worse off than they are. And they're right to think so. There's a study by Chadi et al., which says that in 1950, 90% of 30-year-olds were better off than their parents were at 30, while in year 2010, only half of 30-year-olds were better off. So as you see, our, we would think, natural belief in material progress, which defines our civilization, I think, suddenly is becoming eroded. I believe, therefore, that we're facing a political crisis with deep social and economic roots, and that we have a long way to understand it. We still cannot tell whether the origins of this crisis are exclusively economic. If not, where does the sudden burst of divisions, polarization, anger, xenophobia, and racism, where do they come from? Why now? Why in some countries, no in others? And finally, I think we have to be seriously worrying whether democracy is under threat in countries in which we would never think it would be, including the United States. To return, then, I think that the importance of this award, or these awards, because I should include the paper awards, is precisely to stimulate, to give incentives to a common effort of scholars across the world trying to meet these challenges in a way that's based on understanding and reason. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zhivosky. Could you please stay on stage? Just a second, please. Genç akademisyenlerimizi de sahneye alalım.
I would also invite the young academicians, the jury president, the rector, and let's have a historical picture.
And the young academicians. Fakat benim burada İngilizce çabalamam. Anladı adam. Bir daha söylüyorum. Orhan abi. Sayın Keyman'ı da şöyle alalım. Şöyle.
Mr. Keyman, please, yes. Over to the side, thank you. A family photo, please. And we can present the award once again to Mr. Zhivosky.
Evet. Kocaman alkışlarla şu anı da taçlandıralım.
With a round of applause for all the award winners. We thank you very much. We thank you. We thank all of you.
Alkışlarla uğurluyoruz. Congratulations.
Distinguished guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our ceremony. I would like to share with you once again. Today we remember the late Sakip Sabanci. We're thankful to his teachings. We're thankful that his teachings will actually endure in posterity. And I do hope that it will actually encompass the whole country and the more generations to come. We would like to thank you for being here with us. You are now cordially invited to our reception outside. Have a good evening.